So he was going to meetings that I really had no business being in. I mean, I didn't understand anything that was going on, but at least I got
Me
exposed to
either.
it.
Yeah.
And that goes even into back to HR. We did a kind of a changeover of the department in the last 7 years, and early on, Paul was meeting with HR and just saying, "Hey, Ryan's going to sit in just so he can hear what's going on," and it's invaluable. Did it feel like I was doing two jobs sometimes to an extent because I got all his meetings during the day and I'm coming in early and staying late to get my stuff done. But if you put the hours in it, it did pay dividends, and then just seeing it, you're ready. And then in addition to that, we talked about FaceTime and first impressions and all that stuff. After you've been to all these meetings with these higher level folks and talking about more complex things, they start to build a trust in you just because you're there.
There's a major crisis facing healthcare facilities management. We have aging employees, aging buildings, and aging infrastructure. We've created the Healthcare Facilities Network, a content network designed specifically to help solve for these three pressing issues in healthcare facilities management. We bring on thought leaders and experts from across healthcare facilities management, all the way from the C-suite to the technician level, because at the end of the day, we're all invested in solving the aging issue. Thanks for tuning in. Look at our videos. You will find that as a theme across our content. This is the Healthcare Facilities Network. I'm your host, Peter Martin.
I appreciate my two guests joining me today because we are going to be talking about succession planning. Big topic throughout the industry, and I can think of no two better people to appear on this succession planning talk than my two guests, Paul DeViller, Ryan Gagnon. Gentlemen, before I kind of go into it, can you both introduce yourself, who you are, what your roles are, where you are? You can do it better than I. Paul, why don't we start with you, please?
Absolutely, Pete. Thanks for having us. So I'm Paul DeViller. I'm the Director of Plant Operations, Engineering, and Maintenance for Leahy Medical Center in Burlington and Peabody, part of the BILH system. I'm currently the most recent past president of NEHES, and I'm very glad to be here and look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Paul.
My name is Ryan Gagnon. I'm the Assistant Director of Plant Operations and Maintenance here at Leahy Hospital Medical Center. Again, part of Beth Israel Leahy Health. Currently the treasurer of NEHE, so getting my feet wet in the executive board there. Again, thank you for having us.
Paul, Ryan, you both have been on before. And one of the reasons I wanted to have both these gentlemen on for succession planning is you just heard it. Paul, director, Ryan, assistant director. And Paul, I've told you this before. You and I think probably known each other since like 2014 when you were up at Peabody working at that location. And you have always struck me, and you come across as just, you kind of do anything, right? You roll your sleeves up. I remember the first time we talked, you talked about grabbing the broom if you had to. And so every time we talked, you would always talk about education, succession planning, bringing up the others. You've been very focused on that. Ryan, you as well have been very involved from Mass Maritime, kind of giving back to that next generation, trying to set up a curriculum to draw people in. So with these two gentlemen working together, we want to talk specifically about succession planning and what they're doing at Leahy to account for the future. But before we go there, and I've talked a lot and I will stop talking, we were talking before the camera rolled that Paul and Ryan are shaming me with clothing, the way they are both dressed today with suits and ties, which looks very professional, looks very good. Your organization still wears suits and ties in the FM department? That's part of the expectation?
Correct. We become smarter when we get the extra napkins. So I think that's where, so it's just kind of one of those, I learned that a long time ago, coming up from different places where just being in the rooms that we're in and having the people that you're trying to communicate to, it seems, funny, but like, wearing a suit when them wearing a suit kind of puts you on the same level, I guess, rather than, a maintenance guy talking to the CEO. And so for whatever reason, it just kind of, the message comes across more serious. And so I just, something that adopted a long time ago and have maintained that and kind of, asked my team to do the same. And I think, I'll let Ryan speak to it, but I think he's seen it as well. So he's, I'm not making this up. You kind of just see it as it happens.
Yeah, for me, it was I bought into it right away because starting I was 22 as a manager, and it act the part. It gave me some credibility along with a beard to make me look a little bit older, and you're looked at a little bit differently, especially when you're brand new to the role and right out of school. So yeah, I bought into that right away.
As we kick off a succession planning discussion, I think though dressing the part and being at the table and being accepted by peers very early on, that is kind of a passive component of succession planning, right? If you don't look the part, then you're not going to be seen as able to do the part, I don't think. Do you gentlemen find that?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, I do too. You can't just dress the part. You have to, you're getting into the room. So at some point in time, you have to have some substance to what you're saying. So this doesn't fix everything. But and sometimes in order to get into that room, you have to fit the part. You have to fit the part. But ultimately at the end of the day, you also have to be able to deliver on the information that you need to deliver on.
Yes. And yeah, go right.
I think it just creates a great first impression.
It does.
Any new C-suite or anyone new coming to the building, even a nurse manager that I'm introducing myself to for the first time, it creates a good first impression and puts them at ease for, again, like Paul said with the extra napkin, and it puts them at ease a little bit. And
it's funny because it's just even, Ryan and I will, we'll be rounding and we'll go look at, just different departments and we're looking at some of the work that's getting done and you hear, the suits are here. And then you laugh and it's like, don't worry about us, we're fine. But that's kind of, it automatically, they automatically think that you're even higher up the food chain than you are just because you're in a suit. So I think that so it allows us to, almost level the playing field a little bit with some of the various departments.
Yeah. Yes. Especially when facilities isn't always seen as a peer to those clinical departments, which is unfair and a topic for another one. You guys just jarred my memory a little bit. You were talking about being seen as dressing the part, and you might think that once you're already hired and you've established yourself in an organization that, okay, they know I can work, they know I'm a good person, I can rise and move on in the organization. But it's funny, I was talking to a gentleman, this was a couple of months ago actually now. He had worked at his organization for 4 or 5 years. He was at the supervisory level, wanted to go to the manager level in another department, but a parallel department. And he went to the interview where he knew a lot of the people who were interviewing him, and he was dressed, I don't want to say down, but business casually. He wasn't wearing what you guys were wearing. And that was he didn't get the role. That was part of the feedback that he got, was his dress, too much informality. And it's very interesting. Like you said, first impressions, Ryan, and I think first impression, whether you're going to an organization for the first time or you're interviewing, you have to dress that part, right? To move up.
Back in the day, even if you were going for a basic entry level job, you dressed up, that wasn't even part of it, you had a shirt, a tie, and that was entry level. That was even in the trades. If you were going for an electrical job, you put a shirt, tie on and met the foreman of the company. And over the last, 30 or 40 years, it's kind of really changed to the point where people legitimately believe that they can kind of show up and, hats on backwards and, non-collared shirts and stuff. And then, and that really it sets the stage for, all right, well, how serious are you on the position? And, if you can't make an investment in your appearance, why should we make an investment in you, to work for us?
I tell my kids all the time, and, my kids, Paul, they're a little bit older than your oldest, and Ryan, much older than yours. But now they're going out interviewing, and I tell them that all the time. And fortunately, they listen to me on that one. They dress up, and you guys know this because you're dealing with younger generation. That's half the battle, right? I mean, just appearance and manners and all of that stuff that's kind of gone by the wayside. It gives you a nice advantage. Yep. Like you said, you got to be able to pull through on it, but that look is important.
Yeah.
And right now I may go get a suit coat because I feel very underdressed with you two gentlemen here. But no, let's jump into succession planning. But again, I do believe that appearance is part of that succession planning. Paul, we'll start with you though. When did you realize that Ryan might be kind of part of your succession planning? What did you see in him? And I guess how long have you two been working together? Let's start with that. How long have you been working together? And at what point did you say to yourself, listen, this guy may, I may be able to implement succession planning with him?
Well, I mean, we've been working together officially for like 7.5 years. And where I was working at Peabody before I took over the role here as director, Ryan was interning under Paul Cantrell. So we had kind of informally kind of crossed paths there because I was helping Paul out with some things at that time, and Ryan was working on those. So we started to work together there. And then when I came on board, it was right pretty much around the time that Ryan was graduating. So I think you might have still been like an intern for like the first year, Ryan, and then after that it was, he showed interest and he was passionate about healthcare and was, engaged in all the things that we were trying to do. And it wasn't, I think what I found so far with a lot of the Mass Maritime cadets coming out, or especially they're very, very, very focused in on the engineering side of things and the mechanical side, which is important and you want that, which is why they're so valued. But Ryan actually took a liking and an interest in the actual behind the scenes part of it, which is like the HR component and hiring, firing, how to develop, crews, how to develop, standards, how to, set up a schedule and manage that. So he was very much engaged in that from the beginning. So it became, really easy for me to spend a lot of time with him over those times. At the very beginning when you take on a new job, it's a long day for a long period of time just to catch up. And Ryan was in those trenches with me from the get-go as I was coming into a new job with a staff that, had been institutionalized, and probably needed, some change, and, and that becomes very difficult, and as you're aware, people are afraid and intimidated by change. And when the new guy comes in and starts to make, we've never done this for 30 years and you're telling them they have to, it's not exactly a pleasant experience for anybody. So Ryan got a chance to witness that right from the get-go. So I think that was what impressed me about him, was that it wasn't just about, the cogen, it was about all of the other things that, make a manager or a leader successful.
Interesting. You know what? You said, Paul, that Ryan showed an interest in the HR component of the job. Ryan, I want to go to you on that particular thing. You're coming out of Mass Maritime. You're young, right? Yep. And you haven't really, you've been in the workforce, but you've been in healthcare. What was it about the HR component that interested you? It's just interesting that the HR part.
Yeah. So in hindsight, I think I looked at it as a tool. I came in 22 years old, green as can be, and I had the challenge of winning over and also earning the respect of guys that have been here for 30, sometimes 40 years, that all of a sudden there's a new guy coming in. What does he know? So even just learning that HR side of things and kind of how that game worked, and it helped, it taught me how to speak with staff in an effective way and then kind of gain that trust and respect.
That's really wise. Paul, when we're trying to identify kind of that younger generation to take over, to succeed, to put them in place, what do you think from your experience? And you've lived this for a while now, but from your experience, what might people in your position overlook with somebody in Ryan's position? Overlook or not value? Does that question make sense to you? What might they miss that they shouldn't miss?
Yeah, I think it's a pointed question, because I think it could go in a lot of different ways. I think, one, and you and I have had this, we've actually done some presentations on this together, but it's I don't really look at this as succession planning more as it is business continuity. And I think that, in my position, I have a responsibility to the organization that is paying me to make sure that, in the event, for whatever reason, that never mind firing or, leaving for, under bad circumstances, that I can't come to work tomorrow for a family reason, or, something happens and I need to build a team behind me that can actually run it without me. And I think to get to to your question, I think that's where ego gets in the way of a lot of people, because it becomes almost like oh my God, if I teach him everything, they don't need me. And then so people purposely don't look into it because it's almost like, well, I got here by myself. I don't need to give them, they'll figure it out. Someone, and, or, leadership makes a decision. I don't get to pick that. So when I leave, they'll decide who they want. I don't tell them who it is. And I don't disagree with that. I just think that, like, as a manager and a mentor and someone that's looking at succession planning, my succession planning for Ryan isn't even for this job, it's for a job. He should be able to, like working for me, I should be able to give him or help him gain the tools and the experience so that he can go anywhere and work successfully. It's not just about him taking my seat. So I think that's what people overlook. It's kind of, it gets ego and, like fear of, if I make him, he makes less money than I do. And if I show him everything, then they don't need me anymore. And those are all valid reasons. This stuff happens. But if you run on fear, I don't think you can ever be successful at anything. So I think that, you have to, and again, I feel truly valued by this organization and have for 25 years. So I don't really sit there looking over my shoulder thinking that they're actively engaged in trying to replace me. But if they do, okay. I mean, that's their prerogative, and hopefully I've done my job at what they're paying me for, so that when and if I do move out, Ryan can fill right in and they won't miss a beat. And they won't they'll miss me for about 7 minutes and then everything will work back to normal.
It's funny you say that. I was talking to somebody this morning. I always hate when I say I was talking to somebody, but I truly, because I always thought when people would say that they were making things up, but I really wasn't. I was talking to somebody this morning, and it was kind of about that, Paul. This person had moved on from an organization to another organization, and we were talking about kind of the past, where the person went from. And I was like, listen, they forget about you in a week, too. Like, they have to. Like, so if you're thinking about them, they're not thinking about you. Like you said, you're gone in 7 minutes, right? It's the next person up because the patients are still coming through that front door. Yeah, and you just got to move on. I love your distinction between business continuity and succession planning, because it really does kind of reframe how you look at the issue, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think that's where succession plan. And that is important, and for it puts context to certain things, but this isn't just about like promotion, like my promotion, Ryan's promotion, or anybody else's promotion. It really is about setting up the organization so that they have they're 2, 3, 4 levels deep, in the event of something happening, so that like when Joint Commission comes in, and any MDEP, anybody comes in to take a visit, OSHA, that I'm not the only one holding the key, that there's other people in here that can hold the fort down in the event that I'm on vacation or incapacitated for some reason. And I think that that's where it gets lost a lot amongst a lot of people, that's what this is truly about. It's not just about like building Ryan up so that he can get a promotion. It's about making sure that the organization is safe, that we can run under any sort of situation at any given time, no matter what the situation.
I'd add that doesn't just stop at one person too, because Paul and I both mentioned we're on the NEHES board. If we're both at a conference, we need to feel confident that there's someone else here, that if a DEP or someone showed up, we're confident that it's being handled before, either if we have to come back or not, we have confidence being done.
So from your perspective, Ryan, when did, so you're coming in, you guys have been working together, what you said, 7.5 years roughly, Paul. When did, in your mind, when did you shift from kind of the mentor to, hey, listen, maybe this is a career path, maybe I'm a potential successor? How did that change happen for you? And does that change how you look at your role or do your role?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it kind of clicked within the first year. We had some issue with regulatory agency, and like Paul said, this is more business continuity than anything. But he was dealing with something at home or whatever it was, and he trusted me to kind of grab the bull by the horns and kind of run with it. And he was there for general oversight, but me, along with the safety officer at the time, kind of handled it. And Joint Commission came back in, and everything ended up being fine. And after that, it kind of clicked where I need to be prepared to do these things. If Paul wins the lottery tomorrow and leaves, I need to be prepared to step up, or at least have the opportunity to step up. so that's kind of when it clicked for me within that first year. And it's unfortunately fortunate that, regulatory or whatever comes up all the time, but it's a great training mechanism.
Yeah.
And you learn the most during disasters. So that was a great learning opportunity for me, and kind of when it clicked. And then, I mean, it certainly changed how I look at the role as more holistically an entire department, not just, okay, I'm handling the maintenance folks right now. I don't need to worry about the regulatory. I don't need to worry about other things. It made me start digging into different aspects, even though it was like drinking through a fire hose for a little while. It paid off that, just getting exposure to everything. So
that's interesting. That you said kind of the role clicked to a holistic, and that clicked pretty early on for you when you're coming in. And you and I think we've talked about this before. Like you're coming out of Mass Maritime, you're a good commodity, right? People kind of want to hire you guys coming out of the Maritime. There's lots of avenues you can go. You got into healthcare, you stayed in healthcare, and then you saw kind of the bigger picture. What was it that made you think of this kind of like as a career? Because we're trying to, this again,
Yeah.
You're trying to develop curriculum. We're trying to get people like you in. But for you, what clicked that you're like, you know what, I want to stay in this and do this and advance?
Yep. Honestly, it was working with folks like Paul and Paul Cantrell, who was, there before Paul, and seeing Paul has said to me before, DeViller has said, we're not just here for a job. We're not just here to make money. If you want to do that, we can go somewhere else and probably make more, because it's healthcare. It's when I come to work, and I talk about it with my wife all the time, it's funny, but when I come to work, I feel like I'm actually doing good. There's patients in this building. Our building is the patient. If that air handler isn't working, or you have firewalls unprotected or things like that, it can impact our patients and staff here. So I truly feel have purpose coming to work. And yeah, I was told that early on as, hey, try to look at it this way. And that really stuck with me.
That's a key point you just say there. So you directors of FM, you leaders of FM, when somebody comes in like Ryan, kind of paint that picture, right? That what you're doing makes a difference, and maybe that hooks you in.
Yeah. I mean, even to this day, like on all interviews, any interviews I do, my statement to the candidate is, I'm looking for someone that wants to be part of something larger than just themselves. And you can see it immediately, like the people that get that, the light bulb goes on, and then the ones that don't, they just want the job because it's close to home. There's, over 350 people in here right now at any given moment that can't just get up and walk out of here and are dependent upon us to keep them safe and secure. And most of it's behind the scenes, so they'll never even know about the damper or the air handler or the filter system or whatever it is that we're working on. But they shouldn't have to. They're here because they're ill and they're in a time of need. They don't need to be worried about the air handler.
What traits do you look for when trying to identify somebody who may be that next level, maybe up for that next level and advancing within the organization?
I mean, I think we're always constantly looking. I think that, and it's part of the management part of the job that I really enjoy, is not just looking at like hard skills, but looking at the soft skills as well, and trying to, one, with communication and asking people, like I find that I get really good responses when I ask the question, what do you want to do and where do you want to go? And do you see yourself in management? Do you not want to be management? And I usually will start that dialogue pretty early in the process. And then it's kind of, you give those folks that show an interest, stretch assignments. You give them, things that they wouldn't normally get involved in. We've had, people that were showing promise in our organization that, during the last survey, we brought them with us so that they could actually see and live on the front lines of why we're so critical on, how we want our paperwork and where it comes and why it needs to be on time, so that, they were in the room and they got to see the surveyor and they got to do the tour, and it was eye-opening because they saw why we're so stressed out around these things, because they were like, wow, I can't even believe how tough that was. And so it changed, their perspective, and his specifically, like on the quality of his paperwork and how he was turning it in, and the attention to detail on that, on the stuff he was doing. So I think that that's really what I look at as someone that, has the ability to communicate that they want to move, And then when given the opportunity, they take it. I'm here because when I was given opportunities, I didn't go, no, I don't really want that. I took the opportunity, and I was able to grow. And luckily I had people in my career and still in my career that, took an interest in me and spent the time to teach me and let me, make the mistakes, but also guide me into how not to make mistakes. And I kind of look to pay that forward, really, is like, as much as I can help people that want to move forward and want to put the work in, I will always invest time into them.
Ryan, you mentioned kind of the regulatory issue that you just had to jump into, but as you look back on it, what are some of the, Paul just talked about giving people experiences, giving them stretch assignments. Is there anything or anything in your memory that kind of sticks out that helped prepare you for this, or an experience? You're shaking your head, so I'm going to stop talking.
I don't think it was just one thing. I mean, even as an intern, when I first met Paul and we were on that project for Mr. Cantrell, we were walking the building together, attached at the hip, trying to solve problems together. And then when I came on full time, that didn't change. So he was going to meetings that I really had no business being in. I mean, I didn't understand anything that was going on, but at least I got exposed to it.
Yeah.
And that goes even into back to HR. We did a kind of a changeover of the department in the last 7 years, and early on, Paul was meeting with HR and just saying, "Hey, Ryan's going to sit in just so he can hear what's going on," and it's invaluable. Did it feel like I was doing two jobs sometimes to an extent, because I got all his meetings during the day and I'm coming in early and staying late to get my stuff done. But if you put the hours in it, it did pay dividends, and then just seeing it, you're ready. And then in addition to that, we talked about FaceTime and first impressions and all that stuff. After you've been to all these meetings with these higher level folks and talking about more complex things, they start to build a trust in you just because you're there. So on that first 4th of July weekend, when you're having rolling brownouts, Paul's up north or whatever it is, I'm trusted that, okay, what's going on, you're going to get us out of this, and we're good to go. So yeah, I don't think it was just one thing. I think it was a series of intentional dragging me along to meetings and different places for exposure.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe to the network. And more importantly, share it with your colleagues in the healthcare industry. Together, we can solve the aging crisis that's impacting all of us.
So when you're sitting in those meetings and when there's stuff kind of above you that you just don't understand, I remember, when I was starting in jobs, when I didn't know what people were talking about and I was at a meeting, now I'm older than you, I would always just kind of write things down in my notebook and then go back and check on it afterwards. What did you do when something you didn't understand? So how did you learn from that and put that to action?
Even to the point of, because I went to Mass Maritime, facilities engineering degree. We got into HVAC and things like that, but I don't understand everything about HVAC. And I have these guys that 40 years experience coming to talk to me about things. I got very good at literally Googling things as I was having conversations. It's a big meeting room and just, hey, what's this meaning? Just trying to understand it as we go, along with taking notes and later on doing some research.
Yeah.
And then if I ran into something where I had no idea about it, I then spend time figuring out everything I possibly can about it, just so the next time I would know.
That's awesome. I love that answer. Yeah, I guess that's the difference in age between you and me, because when I was doing it, there was nothing to Google.
Yeah, Google was something that got you in trouble.
And now it's the next step with AI. People are getting answers immediately, even faster.
Okay. It's amazing, isn't it? Oh, and you think how quickly it's gone by. It's just crazy. I want to talk a little bit, and Paul, I want to go back to you kind of on a plan, but Ryan, were you surprised? And every organization is political, Paul. I mean, you've been around, you know this. And Ryan, you're learning it. But did the politics of the organization or the politics of healthcare, take the Leahy part out of it? You've had a couple of different jobs. Did you expect, like when you're at Maritime and you were doing an internship, so maybe, but how did the politics of an organization, was it what you expected, different, or?
It was more than I expected. So
okay.
Honestly, it's something that when I was in school, I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
And where I really started seeing it is when Paul was trying to get me on board. Initially, being no management experience, that people were hesitant to hire me out of school, rightfully so. So even just having Paul to walk through that, and he would keep me informed as to, okay, this is what's going on, was a huge exposure piece for me to see kind of how the politics work on that end of things. So yeah, and then being at different organizations, the culture is different everywhere you go, but ultimately it kind of works a little bit the same. So
Yeah, different sheep in different clothing, I guess, right?
exactly.
Well, Paul, you and I have talked about this before. I mean, I'm not saying this because you're here. You are a master at handling, I mean, you just kind of deal with the politics of the org, you work within it to advance what you need to be done, and you handle it well.
I, I appreciate that. I'm not sure everybody would agree with that
I
statement,
know.
but no, I do appreciate it.
I'm
But I
just a
think
talk
that's
show
a
host.
critical, and one of the things that, from Ryan, and him and I working together right from the get-go, is it was important to me that he understands that, because that's the key. You can't, if you, it's not politics like Washington. It's politics of, like, you have to know, like, who has what position and who has, control over what, and then learning how to have, develop relationships with those people, because relationships get things done. And it's not just, formulated an email and hit and send. It's about, them having, like Ryan just touched upon it a little while ago, is building that trust and faith that, when I call, you answer, and I know that you always do. And then they do it back for you. It's like the psychology of sales. It's like, the salesman used to go to the door and, if you let me show you my vacuum, I'll give you this free, like, cookie jar. And then, it's inherent in people to, well, if you're going to offer me something, I feel like I have to at least, like, take something, I have to listen to you. And that's really, like, it's true. Like, there's a whole book and on that whole subject on, like the training of, salespeople. But I think it works very similar in this environment where, people have to have trust in you and you have to have trust in them. In healthcare, because of the nature of what everybody does for work, and I don't mean to overshoot this, because we are just facilities and I understand that, but, like, people's lives do depend on actions that we're taking across the spectrum inside the hospital, from the nurses, the nurse manager, the C-suite, facilities, environmental services. Like, there's a lot of moving parts in this building, with a lot of, nasty things that could happen if the wrong choices are made, or the lines of communication are not open, and, or opened in real time. And I think we all learned that, during COVID, of, how things shifted so quickly, because we had no idea what was happening, but we still had to, like, do things. So to me, I think that that's, a key driver to anybody's career, coming in, from, especially in management, like, starting in management and healthcare, is to really understand how it all ties together and how it works, and being able to learn to navigate that, and not take it personally, because that's where a lot of people's downfall. It can get easily personal, or people think it's, like, directed to them, and it's not.
Yeah, that's actually, Paul, a good future episode, because I'm hearing that a lot more increasingly, where people take it personally, and it's not. It's business. And like you said, that you talked about the air handler. The patient doesn't know there's an air handler, but if that air handler is not functioning, the patient's gonna might not know the reason, but they're not getting the care that they need or deserve. So yeah, that's a really good point. Paul, this is to you. People sometimes, let's talk succession planning, not the business continuity, though I really do like that business continuity part. But sometimes people get stuck with trying to formulate a plan, right? Sometimes it's, okay, I don't know what to do. That stops them from moving forward, right? But it doesn't. Now, do you formulate a plan? I mean, there's a lot of learning by doing, and you're including, Ryan, but do you have a formal plan that you lay out, or is it, how do you work that process?
I don't have a formal plan. I mean, I think, and I guess you could, and I wish I was that, dedicated and able to put something like that together and hold to it. But I kind of like to go with the flow, I guess. I think everybody's personality is different. Everybody's learning style is different. So I think that, to, have a one plan fits all type of a thing. I don't know that would work for me, because I don't want to, I have to be able to respond in real time in the situation. And I like that. And I think I'm good at it. So I think that trying to have a rigid program, I mean, I think there's some baselines in my head as to like what kind of criteria, as we talked about before, of a person that I'm going to invest time and money into. But yeah, I don't have a set hard, this is the program and follow the program or else. Cause I think, like I said, everybody learns differently. So, and some people's career paths go in different, you don't have to not, the world still needs like environmental services people. Not everybody's going to be a manager. So like, it's okay. We need those folks. Like it's okay if you just want to be an electrician, or you just be the best one you can be. Like, you don't have to, strive to be the leader of the organization. Just do the job you do it and do it well. And I think that, that to me is more my plan than it is like some sort of rigid, template that, I could hand off, and I am handing it off. Like, I was doing it verbally, and Ryan's seeing it, and he's learning from my mistakes. So like, just like I did, I learned more by watching other people of what not to do than I have of probably what to do. And I'm hoping Ryan's getting the same experience where, he sees where I've fallen off the tracks, and is, will hopefully, when he has the opportunity to make those decisions, we'll be able to, have a higher level of insight because of watching all the different things that have happened.
Ryan, how do you respond to that?
I mean, especially on the point of everyone's a little bit different. I mean, that goes into succession plan, but also just general management, where everyone's managed a little bit differently. Everyone needs a little bit different things, whether it's how we talk to them, tone of voice, whatever it is. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
So from your perspective, Ryan, like, when you started on this road, it's kind of like not informal, but you're just kind of accumulating as you go along, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm going to hit this metric, that metric, this metric. It sounds like it works.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because me coming in, I could have been stronger in one thing than another, topic. So I feel like it changed kind of day to day. It was consistent messaging, but what the learning process kind of changed day to day. Or, Paul waited a little while to get me really involved in budgets, but over a couple of years into it, all of a sudden it's okay. Now we're going to sit down and do the budget together, so you fully understand this. Where we didn't have to dive into that right away, because he was kind of doing that, and there was different things to do. So it's, as it comes.
Yeah, let's talk, Paul, to you. Let's talk about that a little bit. So you're a couple of years in, now you're exposing Ryan to the budget. And then we talked about, you don't necessarily have that formal process map, but in your mind, are there kind of like not biting off too much right away, not giving too much right away, because you realize that Ryan's still kind of learning and managing? How do you think about that process?
It's an earned process. And I've said to Brian and all the managers that work for me, it's, and it's something I believe in, and, in management especially, is like, if you do a good job, you'll get more. And like, you'll continue to get more until you don't succeed. And then that will stop. And that will be where your career plateaus. Every time I give Ryan or any one of the managers an assignment, I'm giving them an assignment that I truly believe that they can succeed in. So I'm not setting them up for failure. But then if they don't, can't succeed, or they can't do it, and even after trying to help them out, well, then that's the end of the road, as far as like, you're not gonna get 3 levels up if you can't do this. So it's really more of an earned thing. I would say that it's to each of the, Ryan, and to each of the managers they've earned everything they've gotten, because the assignments that they've received, or whether it's taken on different departments, or it's taken on joint commission, or, a revalidation survey, or whatever it is, and they've handled it, and they've succeeded, and not only succeeded, but like overly, impressed people with it. That was the opportunity to give them more responsibility, so that, they could, because they moved past that level, and now they were ready for the next level. So it was, before I give you the keys to the car, which is the budget, like, I need to make sure that you understand, like, okay, well, how does everything else work? Like, how does the operations work? So you know how to clearly put money into it, like if you don't know how it works. So he did all of those things. So it was really kind of, it's a step by step, and because it is healthcare. And I think, to get back to, like a kind of a more rigid program, it's our day to day, like life in healthcare is completely different every minute to minute, every day. Like I come in every day with the plan of what I'm going to do, only to change it as soon as I walk in the door because something happened that I wasn't expecting. So I think, Ryan being able to adapt to that type of environment and succeed at everything that has been given to him and excel at it, I think that's really, this has nothing to do with me. This is their work. It's his work. He's doing the work, and then I'm able, because he's able to successfully do the work and have the bandwidth to do it, I can give him more, which allows me to move into different directions and do different things in my career.
And part of that is giving your managers or supervisor or whatever it is the confidence that you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. I mean, Paul tells, I think, every manager he has that I'm going to let you scrape your knee and not get hit by the bus. And
love it.
Yeah, I took that to heart, saying, okay, you have the confidence in me that I'm going to do this, and if it does start to go off the rails, I have a backstop in you that I can go to if needed.
That was actually the next question that I was going to ask, kind of two-part. Ryan, starting with you, running the process that way, have there been any difficulties or learning moments for you? And then Paul, I want to ask you, how do you let them, like, when do you decide to jump in? And I think, Ryan, I'm going to let you scrape your knee, but I'm not going to let you get hit by the bus. How do you determine when it's time to let them learn, let them fail, and then kind of come in? I'm imagining it's pretty amorphous, but for you, Ryan, have there been difficulties or one area? And Paul, how do you let them swim and get on their own?
Yeah, I mean, especially early on, there's always difficulties just because the sheer volume of work that I wasn't expecting when I first started. Was it
more than you thought?
Yeah, significantly. Just it was a lot to learn, but also manage at the same time. So when I said drinking through a fire hose, it wasn't a joke. It felt like I was constantly being bombarded with something else. You're going to look at one thing while getting 3 other phone calls to do something else, especially depending on your building and the people you have. I mean, when we first came here, we had an aging infrastructure, and we still do, and things are still breaking, but it wasn't just, okay, I know what to do because I've done this before. I had to learn the process and learn what I didn't know to now make it easier. So yeah, Paul fortunately let me loose a little bit and said, okay, let's see what you do. Just check in with me and make sure. So, when we get the floods in the middle of the night, we don't both have to be there in the middle of the night or whatever it is. It's, the first couple times we were both there up to our ankles in water, but after you learn the process and then the cleanup and that kind of stuff afterwards, you build that confidence and can kind of start doing it on your own. So there's always challenges. Specifically, I don't know anything specific that, I really struggle with this. I think it all just comes and you learn about it and kind of grow through it. So just a challenge. That's it.
Yeah. And Paul, from your perspective, throwing that life preserver?
Yeah, so I mean, again, it starts from the very beginning. So it's, again, I'm not setting up the people that work for me for failure. So like, I will never give someone, I will never make someone do something I won't do. But 2, I'm not going to give Ryan, the hardest thing that he could possibly ever have to do in healthcare on his first week in healthcare. Like, so it's allowing them. So, it's separate, all right, go mark all of these panels and then, and label them down. And then when that comes back and it's all done and it's organized, then, all right, then I know, all right, I don't need to tell, all right, this is what I want you to do. Figure out how to do it. Just put it in there. So it starts kind of like that. And then I kind of like my thought process with it really is, anything that would get me called to the carpet to explain, you need to run by me. If it's a localized decision internally, like where it's all internal, like, okay, I'm going to give you the autonomy to make that decision. If you run into something that you don't understand or you need some guidance, come to me, but I'm not going to micromanage the process. But like, if this is something that's going to affect where I'm going to get called to the president's office or my boss's office to explain, then I really want you to come by and talk to me before you make a move, because I'm the one that's going to have to answer for it.
That sounds like an effective guardrail. Has that worked well for you, Ryan, kind of in your head to know that and keep you?
Yeah, for sure. And even on top of that, if I went to him with hey, this is what we're dealing with, he goes, so what do you think we should do? Not just give me the answer. I'd work through it and already have an answer ready for him. but it's just something to bounce off them, and it's either, yep, that's what I would do, go for it, or okay, have you thought about it this way? And yeah, so it's been very effective, guardrail, backstop, whatever you want to call it, to have that option just to bounce ideas off of.
You know, as I listen to you,
And I would
Yeah.
say too, like, to kind of go on that with all, Ryan's heard this many times, and everybody else that's, come to work for me as a manager has heard this, is, you're in the operations function of the office. Like, so like, I'm expecting you to handle the operations. And if I have to do the operations, I don't need you. Like, this is, and it's, so this isn't all like, sunshine and rainbows. It's like, I'm tough and demanding. I'm demanding on myself. I'm demanding on my staff. So it's not like a free ride. Like, you have to earn the right to be here and do all of the work that you're getting. So it's not just, I don't want to do anything, so you handle it. There is a method to the madness, even if it's not on the paper. But that's really what to me is, Ryan comes in, I already know, like, now we've worked together for so long. I'm like, before I even say it, I'm like, all right, you already have the answer to this. What do you want to do? Like, I know and that's, one thing that I've really liked, and watching him, like, grow as a manager and as a leader is that, like, he understands that he's thinking about stuff constantly. So it's not just like, he's not winging it. Like, I don't want to say bothers him, but like, it's important enough to him that he thinks about it in times that he shouldn't be thinking about it. And I do a lot of the same thing. And I think people that are successful at their jobs, it's not just I don't just go home and completely shut off. There's sometimes when I have to think about my next steps and how I'm going to do it, and the strategy behind it. And Ryan is very similar to that. And a lot of my other managers are too. Like, they come with, solutions and not just problems. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so important because so many people don't get that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not here to solve all of the problems. I'm here to direct traffic. Like, your operations, like, you need to be able to, assess what you're working with and then make a plan of action. And, just like when we were at the conference, the spring conference with, the keynote speaker, and he was talking about, not making a decision is making a decision.
Yeah.
So, and that's the worst thing you could possibly do. And it sends the wrong message to your team when you're indecisive and people, I didn't have enough information. Well, you're never going to have enough information. It's, sometimes you have to, you have to take initiative, and you have to, like, be comfortable and confident in your ability to lead the people that you're leading. And, I think I try to instill that in all the people that work for me. And if you micromanage, then people are afraid to take that step because they don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be willing to get in trouble sometimes to make decisions.
Yeah, you got to fail. I thought the keynote speaker last week, Lieutenant Colonel, do you remember his name?
It was like Oakland McCullough.
Oh, was fantastic. I mean,
he might be my new hero.
Yeah. He was up there for what? 70, 75 minutes. I could have listened.
Yeah.
I could have gone another hour. I mean, he was outstanding.
Yeah, he might be one of the best, like, keynote speakers that we've ever had from a Nihi's group.
Did you guys get good feedback from the attendees?
Yeah, so far we'll see. We did the questionnaires, like, so people for the certificate, so we're still waiting on the final. But as far as attendance, it was over 425 people this year, which is a very high number for us. So I'm pretty sure that anybody that got the opportunity to witness his delivery, like, if you weren't impressed by that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, for the keynote in particular, I got a lot of positive feedback.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Like I said, I could have listened to him. So we're coming up at the end of an hour because these two guys just don't do succession planning and talk. They actually do real work. So for, like, Paul, to you, for an FM leader, and maybe I know what your answer is going to be, but we'll ask anyways. But for an FM leader who's watching this, they knew they do something. They all talk about it. Not everybody does it. Is there a piece of advice you could give them just to get started? And then both of you, because you're both experienced it, are there some common mistakes to avoid? So I guess, Paul, how do you just get started? And then to both of you, are there mistakes that you could tell people that you guys have made or you're aware of to avoid and have it go smoothly? It's never going to go smoothly. You know what I mean? Smooth doesn't always work.
I don't know. I think, again, every situation is different and organizations are different. And again, I've been very fortunate that for the last 25 years of my career, I've been inside the Leahy organization. And so they've been very good to me, and they do have a culture that kind of looks at, the way in which we treat one another and how they treat us. And I think so it was easy for me to do some of the things that I'm doing because culturally it was accepted. I think it's really, to me, like the biggest thing is to engage and drop your guard. Like, again, don't be like, if you're going into this and you're really worried about like losing your job or giving someone, all the information and then they won't need you anymore. I think you're not ready to like do succession planning. You actually need to start taking a look at like, is this the career for you? And like, is this organization right for you? Because if every waking moment of my day, I felt like my organization was looking for ways to remove me, I'd forget setting them up for the future. I don't have a future, like I don't know that that's a good environment. So I think that, in order to have a successful succession planning or continuity of operation, you have to have an organization that like believes in their people and wants to help where they can. And again, Leahy's not giving things away. You got to earn it, and like, people that earn it, like in my experience with the organization and leadership over the years, is that they value that, and they move it forward when they can, and they will work with you to help you and help you better your career. So I think that you have to have, that's the key driver, and if you have that, that the person like myself in my role, I can't be worried about if Ryan's going to take my job or not. Like and I've said it to Ryan, I've laughed, I've said it to pretty much everybody that I've worked with. Like, I don't, try and take my job. Like, go ahead. You won't be the first one. You won't be the last one. And honestly, that makes me stronger. Cause I have to stay on my A game. So it's not just, I'm learning as much from Ryan and my team as hopefully they're learning from me. It's not a one-way street. And, so that camaraderie, and it's healthy, challenging. It's not like backstabbing and trying to step on someone's neck to get to where you want to go. It's like, I have a very high performing team that I'm very proud of, but it makes me have to have my A game all the time, because I'll be the one I will lose my job because they deserve to be where I'm at. So I'm like, bring it. It's, it's good, but a lot of people have, they have a fear of that kind of healthy competition.
Ryan, anything?
I think also it's Paul mentioned ego earlier. It's trying to take ego out of it and giving credit where credit's due. So, for example, if you have a manager or someone that's looking up to you and you give them a task and they do it, let them present it or let them be the face of it. Don't take their work and present it as your own, things like that, which I think is...
That happens.
It's common, and because I'm the director, I need to be the guy that talks to them, and it's, well, give them an opportunity to prove themselves, and I'm thankful that Paul's never been like that. If it's my work, I get credit for that work, so it gives his team an opportunity to shine, which in turn lets him shine because he built that team.
Like, you got to build your brand, and that's how you do that here is by being able to present and show your work. And I see it. I've seen it so many times with people, exactly like what Ryan said. Like, I got all my people in the back working, till 7 o'clock at night, slaving away trying to get all these like PowerPoint presentations together, and then I show up at the big meeting, look what we did, and I hate that.
I know we got to go. You got to go. It's funny you say that, Paul. I heard a story once, and it's a true story. There was somebody who was doing a presentation at a regional conference. And the person up there presenting, there was a person in the audience who's like, that's part of my presentation. That's part of my presentation, that this person. So and I've heard it happen numerous times. What I love about what you said is, this is so much of the soft skill that you're really good at. I mean, if you can't communicate, take your ego out. And the last thing, I think you hit on what we may title this, see if the marketing people agree, succession planning. Engage and drop your guard. Isn't that like, that is engage and drop your guard? Because if you can't do that, you're not going to succession plan.
Exactly.
I love that line. I might pay you for it if I trademark.
All right, there you go. My royalties as my future blogger career goes. Yeah.
We're not bloggers. We're videographers.
Videographers. My bad. See, I don't even know the lingo. That shows you. Yeah.
It's all right. You'll be my succession plan.
There you go. Taking over for Pete next month. We'll see you guys there.
There you go. Paul DeMiller, Ryan Gagnon.
Yeah, right.
I appreciate your time. Paul, you want to close it out? Close it out. What would you say?
Thank you so much for having us. We really look forward to seeing the results of this, and I hope people that watch this get something out of it. And if you want to hear more, you want to talk to any of us, reach out to Pete. We'll be more than happy to communicate or touch base with anybody that has any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Pete.
If you want to be a guest on a future episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network, go to healthcarefacilitiesnetwork.com and let us know who you are and what you want to talk about, because together we can solve this critical aging issue.